Hello, my name is Chitta and I am one of Bante's students. We realised recently that if people wanted to make donations to Bante, it wasn't necessarily very easy. It doesn't have a fixed address and therefore a fixed donation box. So we've added a link below if anybody does feel like they want to offer some dana in any way. Obviously it's going to a wonderful cause. It's supporting the sasana and helping support the translation of all the suttas and the recitation of the suttas. So if you feel that way inclined, then please do click on the link below and support this wonderful monk. Thank you. May you be well.
By nature, one could say, we are designed to be leaning on something, someone, an experience, a memory, an idea, a view. Even the Dhamma serves as something for many to lean on. Dhamma as in the teachings. The Dhamma itself is nothing to be grasped or leaned on to begin with. It can't be. If it helps, it helps. But what we often do is we look at the conditional world. We look at what it is that we're surrounded by, individuals, things, even views, points of view, teachings, people. And given what they mean to us, we develop a purpose. We develop a somewhat of an anchor to lean on, to anchor our boat to. But anything and all things that are conditional to begin with, sooner or later will become unsettled. They will be shaken up. And that is in the very nature of all things that are conditional. That includes the loved one, that includes the memory, that includes points of view or views or even teachings. I share with you and have been sharing with you the Dhamma for several years now. But and it's coming from the teachings of Lord Buddha. But you go and listen to another Bhante somewhere else, even if they choose the same sutta from the same Pali Nikayas, it might be presented in a different way. Filters are at work. Or even yourself. You might listen to a Dhamma discourse when you're in a very open state, welcoming state, accepting state. And that same Dhamma talk, let's say the recording, you listen to it again when you're not doing so well, when you're in an emotional upheaval, it won't register. What happened? Even that is conditional. It's not the Dhamma itself, it is what we make of it. The moment the teachings leave the lips of Lord Buddha, not everyone was an arahant simply because they listened to him. There were other people next to Venerable Bāhiya, when Lord Buddha was giving him that concise, very short teaching. He was the only one who became an arahant on hearing it. So it has a lot to do with the state of mind in which we reside, or we are usually experiencing. So I would like you to bear that in mind, not just while listening to this sutta, which is today's, actually it's I like to do two suttas today, and they're back to back. It's from the book of the Tens, so sutta number 1 and 2 from the book of the Tens, Dasakanipata. And the sutta is, the first one is called Kimatthiya Sutta, which is the purpose. The purpose. When we crystallize something, when we solidify something, what we're trying to do is we're trying to anchor ourselves. And when I say ourselves, the personality view, protecting of oneself, that self-preservation that's behind every single statement and sentence you've ever said to anyone. Check it. There's somewhere, even a tiny little tinge of that, somewhere hidden. Me, myself, I, my sense of I, what belongs to me, what I like, what I do not like, and what I very much want. All these need to have the groundwork of a foundation of a substantially pertinent, stable, stationary, unchanging, independent sense of self, all of which is just a ruse. All of it is just it's a charade. It's a fix. It's a lie. It's a mirage. But the Putujjana, the unlearned, undisciplined, ignorant person, who does not have much regard for the noble ones and this noble Dhamma, will continue to lean on what feels familiar, what feels right for them. And that means when they are relying on something, leaning on something, despite the fact that it is transitory, it's changing, it's impermanent, and it's causing suffering to them, despite all that, the constant constructions, the preparations of ideas and new concepts, new hopes of some type of a solidity, some type of an permanency to come out of that. And that's what we see all around. So it's a duality, that an extreme, either this or that, a thisness to a thatness. Running from this to that. And once you're there, that becomes a this, doesn't it? And now what are you going to do? You're going to run from that state of thisness to that, which is this. So you're going back and forth like a ping pong on a table tennis court. So what is the purpose is the name of this sutta. And here we have Venerable Ananda approaching Lord Buddha in this sutta, in this discourse, with some very down-to-earth questions. Questions that we need to ask ourselves every so often. And not just us, but anyone practicing any kind of a path, of a training, is in a training, a spiritual training. What is it that we are practicing for? And that's why these two suttas are very much connected. And you'll see why. So this is from the Book of the Tens, as I mentioned, from the Numerical Discourses, Anguttara Nikaya, and it is Sutta number 10.1, Kimatthiya Sutta. And let us begin. I have personally heard this. At one time, the Blessed One was staying at the monastery offered by Anathapindika in Jeta's Grove, in the city of Savatthi, when the Venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One, worshipped, and sat onto his side and said, Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of cultivating a virtuous, wholesome behavior? Basically, Bhante, why do we practice Sila? He's asking. Why are we practicing Sila? This is very important because oftentimes it could be turning into some type of a rites and ritual, which often is the case with all religions, especially during the last few years of witnessing this within Buddhist circles. I can say that Buddhists are no different. In that, to turn the teaching that is so wholesome into a mere sets of rites and rituals. So when we're taking the 5 precepts, today, before we began our sit, we took refuge and then we took the 5 precepts, as we always do. And my encouragement is always for you to do that on a daily basis. Now, when you're doing that, what is happening? Is it once in a day, just in the morning when you're taking them? Or is it something that is helping you to maintain sati? Why? Earlier during your meditation, as I was sharing some words while you were sitting, allowing the mind to rest, come to a state of rest, I mentioned something about sati being also protective. Protective of what? 6 senses. The 6 sense spheres are always, so long as we're alive, bringing information. We're immersed in life. And even if you're in a sensory deprivation chamber, the mind is still working, and that's the big one. The mind is, in fact, the processor of everything, every sense that comes in and brings in information. So here we have Venerable Ananda asking, Bhante, why do we practice Sila? Why do we have to maintain virtuous, wholesome behavior? What is the benefit? Now, there are countless discourses, and we together have covered several discourses, hundreds of hours of talks, specifically on the purity that comes from protecting yourself. However, here we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, if you will, where a direct question, and Venerable Ananda was, in some cases, in many cases, very direct in his question. He was so matter of fact. At times he had to do more of a, not be so direct when he wanted something from Lord Buddha. But here we see that. And Lord Buddha is going to give him a bite-sized response, if you will. Ananda, the purpose and benefit of cultivating a virtuous, wholesome behavior is non-regret. Non-regret. When I mentioned how it is important for us to be watchful and use sati to protect ourselves, sometimes, usually when we think of protection, we're protecting against some vicious, huge, powerful, menacing presence, big, basically. And that is not necessarily the case when we're dealing with the six senses. Oftentimes, it's very subtle, very subtle. You might see something that deep down you say to yourself, during and afterwards especially, I should not have looked at that. I should have not tasted that. I should have not said that. Why am I thinking that thought? Why is that memory keeps popping into my head? And then you try to do what? Squeeze it out, suffocate it somehow. And ultimately, it's a mind object. You cannot do that. You cannot beat a mind object with another mind object. It's like reaching over into a cesspool to pull out a piece of something that you want that has fallen into it. Let's say a stick that has fallen into a cesspool covered with poop, excrement, filth. And you're saying, no, if I do it fast enough, if I get my arm halfway all the way to my elbow and pull that thing out, my hand is somehow not going to be sullied, dirty. It's impossible. Your hand is going to be just like that piece of stick, covered in filth. So, where does the non-regret part come in? Remember that thing the scenario I was mentioning about you might have seen something, thought something, etc., said something. That creates a tiny little agitation, which doesn't stay tiny. The mind says, don't worry about this. I got this. I got this covered. Don't worry. Let's move on to the next moment. What that has turned into is eventually, sometimes it's exponential. It happens so fast, depending on how you are practicing in this training. It will become intolerable. This is one way of understanding that sense of regret. When you do something, when you break precepts. Now, again, as I was mentioning to a student this week, we practice the 5 precepts. Those are the observable, lokiya, or the mundane. You can even call it superficial level of Sila, the 5 precepts, or the 8, or the 10, or the 227. These are simply on the superficial level. That's a start. But the idea or the approach, the training involves us not staying on that level. It has to be refined, transformed into what Lord Buddha calls it, the higher virtues, adisila. And this is why when Ajahn Mun, one time I think he had been visiting Bangkok from Chiang Mai, I believe, and a layperson gathered the courage to get up and ask the question. And he said, Ajahn, is it true that you only practice one rule? And Ajahn Mun said, yes. And the man was now a little bit shaking because he knew what was to come. Because he was honest. That's why he knew what was to come from Ajahn Mun. That's a moment of honesty. He was not making up anything. He was not trying to minimize or create an argument or disrespect the teacher. He said, but Bhante, Ajahn, we know that bhikkhus practice 227 rules, and you are a bhikkhu. I'm not getting what you're saying. How could you be practicing that and only saying that you practice one rule? And with compassion, Ajahn Mun says, I practice the rule that matters the most. That is the mind, observing the mind. You have that covered, and you got the 227, the Patimokkha entirety covered, because that's where it begins. So the person might end up going through the motions of practicing all of these 227 rules, chanting the Patimokkha every 2 weeks, doing all the, doing all that is, quote unquote, is expected from a bhikkhu. But they might be valleys and peaks, as my mom would say, away from being a true bhikkhu. Why? Because they missed that very important rule that Ajahn Mun was talking about. Essentially, he was talking about Sila. This is the thing that makes you go to sleep or any time of day when you have nothing to lean on, when you have no ground and life is coming at you in all the different forms, and you just have your virtue to look back on. And you ask yourself, okay, had I been surrounded by the same situations as I was in the past, would I still do that? Would I still break those precepts as I used to? And the answer is categorical, no. And who am I practicing Sila for? Nobody. That means that the Sila has been transformed. It's becoming more lokuttara, you can even say, supramundane, deeply transforming the person. So non-regret here has everything to do with that, because you're not practicing for anyone else, Lord Buddha is saying. It is for you. You simply don't have any causes for you, for your heart to become agitated. And that is ultimately why we practice Sila, because you do not want any commotion in the background. You cannot build a skyscraper or a house even on shaky ground. Try it. You cannot build it. You need to first create a solid foundation. I don't know how many tons of concrete sometimes you have to pour into after you've dug enough of a deep hole. And then you create enough of bolsters and protectors and all the necessary wires and structures that are necessary, and then you wait. After some time has passed, only then you start to build the first floor, second, etc. So this is the essential part. We don't start from the 10th story, the 10th floor and down. That's impossible. So Lord Buddha is saying, check to see as to why is it that you are practicing Sila. He's not just answering Venerable Ananda, he's answering every bhikkhu. In fact, he's answering a question that has not been asked by many of them. And Venerable Ananda probably is asking this question. We don't know much about it, the setting as that is. But usually when Venerable Ananda would ask a question like this, he would be asking it in front of other bhikkhus and novice monks who needed to be taught a lesson, shaken up. But he would do it, in this case, you could see what I meant by indirectly. Bhante, why do we practice Sila while the other bhikkhus are sitting there? He must have seen something. He must have heard something. And that would be a perfect opportunity for Venerable Ananda to reach in and become the catalyst for Lord Buddha to give a poignant teaching. Non-regret, he says. And then Ananda continues, Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of having non-regret? So you see, it's going to unfold into other layers. So what's the point, Bhante? So he's playing dumb. Not to be disrespectful to Venerable Ananda, of course, but these are not menial questions. These are deep questions. So what's the point of not having regret? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of having non-regret is to experience delight, pamojja, delight. You're not delighting in something, you're not leaning into something, but there is the sense of, you can almost say it's like bliss. It's like quiet. It's like there's no major occasion, but there's no agitation. That is enough of a silent celebration going on. It's lovely. And Venerable Ananda continues, Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of experiencing delight? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of experiencing delight is joy, piti. Eventually you look around, you look here, you look there, every room you walk into, every place you go into, you're like, this is nice. I'm not hounded. I'm not being hounded by regretful or remorseful thoughts, or I should have done that. Why did you say that? Where did you look? Why did you? No, you drop the past. Many of us are still, I was telling someone the other day, when they were asking about the Dhamma, I said, well, the whole purpose of the practice is not to be suffering. But unfortunately, most of us are carrying a cross over our shoulders. Suffering. And then we have been taught perhaps that the glorification of suffering is somehow good. Or if not now, it's going to be good later. This is sick, mental sickness. This is unhealthy. Even joy has become something to be dubious about, something to be suspicious about. No, Lord Buddha is saying you need that. Non-agitation is a good state. And don't wait for it to come down to you from the clouds open up and there's beams of light shine on you and all of a sudden there's this no. You are in every part of it, you are responsible for that non-regret, which leads to delight, which leads to joy, he's saying. And all from what? From practicing Sila. So you don't practice for anyone else, for somebody else to look at you and say, wow, look at him, he's such a ethical, moral person. None of that. You don't care. Who cares? And then he says, Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of experiencing joy? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of experiencing joy is tranquility. Tranquility of mind. This is pasadhi. Pasadhi. Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of experiencing tranquility of mind? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of experiencing tranquility of mind is bliss. Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of experiencing bliss? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of experiencing bliss is samādhi. Oftentimes people misunderstand samādhi. I am beginning to, in my translations, try to stay away from collectedness of the mind, collectedness of the heart, or stability of the heart. Over the years, I've used one of these, and they are, I guess it's an evolution, but I seem to have made a full circle back to the word samādhi because it's so full, it's so rich. Lord Buddha was the one who created it, who weaved that word into existence. to describe this sublime state where there is bliss, there is quietude, there is tranquility, there is openness, but there is also focal point. There's unification of mind, ekaggata, all in one. That's why concentration can never, ever, ever be samadhi. Only concentration, that is. It's one aspect of it. And that's why pushing ourselves, pushing the mind especially, causing it to be squeezed and squeezed and squeezed in order for us to attain some samadhi is a futile effort. It causes more pain than good. So it's important for us to see the transition from where we started and how we ended up at samadhi. Because what you have is still, sadly, even within this tradition, within Buddhism, where people go on these retreats, people go into vipassana, people go into samatha practice and others, there's torture. Like you're torturing your body, you're torturing your mind. It's like we skipped 2,600 years and we went past the point where Lord Buddha became awakened into the time, into those 6.5 years of him torturing himself. And we're smack dab into that center of that duration of time where there was simply avidya. We're completely ignoring the history of the Dhamma and what Lord Buddha taught for 45 years. You remove joy, you remove tranquility, you remove, in that sense, samadhi, you are back in the arms of dukkha. So how could we possibly call that a vipassana retreat? How could we possibly call that a Buddhist meditation retreat of any type? In order for it to be a Buddhist practice, it needs to be a middle path. There's no middle path there. Now, of course, you're not moving around, you're not jumping around, you're not doing kumbaya or like some enjoyment of the senses. No. You're doing the right samadhi. That's why the Lord Buddha insisted on including this as part of the Noble Eightfold Path. Samma samadhi, he says. Ananda, the purpose of Venerable Ananda is asking, Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of experiencing samadhi? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of samadhi is seeing and understanding for the first time how things are. For the first time. Now, the mind can come in and say, oh, that means it's going to happen temporally once. You see it for the first time and that's it. From next, it's not. Well, there's a term that Lord Buddha uses a lot. You see it a lot. I've mentioned in the book, Yatha bhutang pajanati, yatha bhutang. Jnanadassana, yatha bhutang. Yatha means the way it has come forth and become, bhutang. Whatever shape, however it is unfolding, you are discovering how it is coming to be in front of you, present, progressive. ING, it's a present, it's not a past. It's happening all the time, therefore. So while you are in samadhi, this is the essence of insight, by the way. All of a sudden, it's unfolding constantly. That's why the Arahants would have this fresh look upon their face. They would feel so people would look at them and they would see them very youthful, despite the fact that they were in their 80s, and in the case of Venerable Ananda, over 100. Because of what the mind, the heart is experiencing. So you're seeing and understanding, jnana dassana. Jnana, knowing, knowledge, understanding, and dassana, to see. This is not seeing with these eyes, the physical, ocular lenses. Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of seeing and understanding for the first time how things are or come to be? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of seeing and understanding how things are is to finally become disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world. These two terms are crucial to understand. Not enough things are being said about them. Unfortunately, within Dhamma circles, everybody's talking about Nibbāna, everybody's talking about jhanas these days, everybody's talking about sati, mindfulness this, mindfulness that. But they want to keep it at that as if sensorially high note, if you will, of, yeah, it's a peak. Even samadhi for some people is like, wow, delight, yes, yes, bliss, yes, yes. Well, the Dhamma is not complete yet. Why? Because we have missed what comes after jnana dassana. When you see things how they are, immediately you have within you this unusual experience. That's so visceral, that's so undeniably there, that is so real, unmistakable. Nibbida, and then viraga. Disenchantment arises, and then dispassion. You lose the lust you had for the thing. You lose that passion towards the thing. And it continues to come out, to lose its intensity. So why though? Remember earlier, we were talking about non-agitation. Somehow in our lives, we have convinced ourselves that agitation, because of negative experiences, bad experiences, unpleasant, painful experiences, that agitation is bad, we need to get rid of, but the agitation that comes because of good experiences, those are fine. No, they're not fine. They're agitation. Agitation is agitation is agitation is agitation, whichever way you cut it. Why? Because it keeps the mind like this. And no Nibbāna is going to take place if the mind is like that. Otherwise, why were we practicing samadhi? This is why so many people nowadays are stuck in jhana land, or the hope of getting into jhana. But the interesting thing is, even with the jhanas, I don't care even if you're able to get into the 8th jhana, it will not stay because it is conditional. In time, you will not be able to get into it for some people. And what happens is the person is perplexed. They come, Bhante, I can't even get into the 4th jhana. I was able to get into the 7th and 8th. What's this? Why were you even getting into the jhana in the first place? Do you see now the connection that I was trying to make with leaning on something? In the beginning, I was mentioning how by nature, as if we want to lean onto something, and anything is going to be unsettled sooner or later. The very fact that we have leaned in to something or leaning on to something, and all things are conditional, I'm just opening myself up for newer states of agitation to happen. So there's no wisdom. That's what I'm trying to say using all these words. There's no wisdom, because where does wisdom come from? Remember, jnana dasana is one aspect of the taking place, the arising of, the origination of, if you will, even of wisdom. Otherwise, what is it that you are seeing and understanding? Jnana and dasana of what otherwise? And it's not necessarily the world outside of you. How things are happening outside of you, in the world, with people, but you're seeing how your mind ticks, how it works. You're seeing the mechanics of how you process and what happens, not just the thought, the pondering and planning analysis, or how you convince yourself, but how one thing leads to another and how ignorance is maintained in the mind of a Puthujjana. And the more you do this, the less and less you become a Puthujjana, and more you become an Arya, a noble disciple. You're getting closer and closer to that. Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of finally becoming disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world? Ananda, the purpose and benefit of finally becoming disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world is to directly know liberation and to experience it for oneself. That is why we practice. And no, don't come to me and say, Bhante, I just want to practice meditation so that I can get some relief. It's like saying, I want to be a little bit pregnant. It's as ridiculous as that. Either you're in it or you're not. Now we're looking at it from the other side. We're all in suffering. If you have a little bit of suffering, you're in a lot of suffering. You're just unable to see that you're in a world of suffering. The practice allows you to see the connections, and more connections until you see, oh my. A few weeks ago, I was mentioning how we have this structure at play, what Lord Buddha calls it, the samudaya, the origination. This is not necessarily just a breakdown of the Four Noble Truths, but the arising and the going down, the coming down. Attagama, samudaya attagama, the arising and dying down. But the hope, the eagerness, the wish that this thing that we're after, this sensory pleasure, this thing that I was after, for it to turn around and give me satisfaction or gratification. Asada, it's called. The one before it, Attagama, the one before that is Samudaya. So origination, it collapsing, whatever arises drops down. So this thing that I wanted, I grabbed it, because it's conditional, it's going to drop, it's going to fall. But there's this aspect that makes me jump to the next one, because I'm like, don't worry. That's tanha working in the background. That's craving comes and says, don't worry, I got you covered. Yeah, I know this didn't work out, but let's forget about that completely. Let's go after this. Look how shiny and lustrous this is. Yeah, but what about that? It faded away, even though you promised me so much. The Puthujjana will not say that. The Puthujjana will go, yeah, show me where it is. Where's the next one? Why? Because there's the promise of gratification in there. That's why people keep doing the same thing. You see this, a family friend, every 6 months or 10 months, this is from my time as a layman, every time I would go to their house, he would be looking at new magazines. He would be going to car dealerships, looking for new cars. And I would ask him, but didn't you just buy a new one? like 5 months ago? And he's like, yeah, but there's this new one coming up. But yeah, but you said the same thing about this one. Yeah, but yeah, this one is going to have these functions. This is the same thing. It's like when you're at, you see this at an ice cream shop or a gelateria, and you know, where people will try different flavors. Oh, I want to try that. Oh, how about that one? It's the same thing. We do this with our eyes, with our ears. We're doing this all the time. That is the promise of gratification, the satisfaction, which, by the way, is a risk itself. And that's the fourth attribute of things that grab the putujjana, keep the putujjana in dukkha, samsara, and it has been doing it to us. So the person who sees all this happening, he sees the risk, the peril, the danger in this. That's the fourth aspect. The putujjana is not going to see the fourth one, and he's definitely not going to see the fifth one coming up, which is the nissarana. The pulling away, the turning your back and saying, no, I'm not going to be going into any dealership. No, thank you very much. I'm done. So the person is coming off of the carousel that goes in circles constantly, non-stop. So long as it's got its victims, it's going to keep rolling. Disneyland is always going to be rolling. Always. So long as it has its victims who are, sure, I'll believe in plastic. Yeah. In fake happiness. Yeah, sure. So when you pull away from this, it is the result of, actually they work hand in hand, of disenchantment and dispassion working. And the more you do this, the more you see all the tricks that your mind has been using to keep you in suffering, the more you uncover these onion layers, you peel them off, you're getting closer and closer to release, to liberation. No one liberates us, no one. And it doesn't have its magical timer somewhere, sometime in the future without any work from our end. We need to work on this. That's why there's no sudden awakening. It is all sudden, but it's all dependent on gradual, sustainable progress. And only you could do. And that's what Lord Buddha is saying. And no, his senses, the person's senses will not die. They're in full functioning, perfect order. But the person is becoming disenchanted. They're not being fooled anymore. They're not fooling themselves anymore, to even say it more accurately. Thus, Ananda, the purpose and benefit of cultivating a virtuous, wholesome behavior is non-regret. The purpose. So now Lord Buddha is summarizing and putting it all together. The purpose and benefit of having non-regret is to experience delight. The purpose and benefit of experiencing delight is joy. So the Buddha's path is not gloomy. Sometimes I've seen pictures of, monks that are very serious looking, intimidating looking. And it reminds me of some of the priests and bishops that I used to be surrounded by, growing up in the Christian monasteries. Like, okay, we better be in our best behavior, otherwise, something bad's going. That's not the practice. When there's joy, it exudes from you. You listen to the few recordings that have survived from Webu Sayadaw. He's laughing while giving a Dhamma talk. I had one Mahatera once tell me, well, in order for, and we were scared from being around him, like when he would go, like, look and walk, and it's like as if I was back being in, elementary school, primary school, and the dean was walking by in the hallway with his huge cane. It would be that emotion generated in my heart, like, what is this? I'm supposed to be on a metta retreat. What is this? I'm scared. That's what I am. I feel scared, and this is funny. As a grown man, I'm scared. What is this? And that person would tell me, no, when you become an arahant, you don't laugh, you don't smile, you don't, whoa. Webu Sayadaw was an arahant. And in his Dhamma talks, you don't have to understand Burmese. I don't understand Burmese. But the way you could hear his compassion through his words. It's melodic. The giggles, he would just say some things, and all of a sudden the layperson who's refusing to meditate, or all of a sudden he's caught in a sense. And he says, see, the Dhamma is simple. You don't have to complicate things. Don't throw Abhidhamma stuff on me. No, just stay with the breath. Can you stay with the breath? Stay with the breath and you will not break any Sila, that's for sure. And then he laughs. There's joy in the heart of such a person. So when you're sitting and you're practicing Sila, do you have that? And if you don't, please invite that. That's my encouragement. That's what Lord Buddha is trying to say here. The purpose and benefit of experiencing delight is joy. The purpose and benefit of experiencing joy is tranquility of mind. And that must happen. In this practice, after you've experienced joy, there needs to be the presence of this soothing tranquility that pervades everywhere. That's like a crescendo. That becomes, for a lack of a better word, intense. It becomes intensified in you. But it's so humble. It's so welcoming. It's so protective. That sense of tranquility must be there, because that is the clue, the signpost that, hey, you're getting nearer to samadhi. Any moment now, you're going to drop into samadhi. Otherwise, if the mind is agitated, remember what I was saying about agitation. There's not going to be any samadhi anytime soon. The purpose and benefit of experiencing, so bliss happens after tranquility. The purpose and benefit of experiencing bliss is samadhi. The purpose and benefit of samadhi is seeing and understanding for the first time how things are. The purpose and benefit of seeing and understanding for the first time how things are is to finally become disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world. Now remember, the world means not just the actual physical world or other people, but anything that the world has given you, including this body, your parents, the four elements, your feelings, your emotions, the triggers that you get from the six sense doors. All these are the world. Your feelings about them are the world. Your memories come to you because of the world. So please don't think, just externalize the world as something out there, over there, and I am here, because that would still be perpetuating this false sense of I, Sakkaya Ditthi. We're back to square one otherwise. So be careful. The purpose and benefit of finally becoming disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world is to directly know liberation and to experience it for oneself. So as you see, Ananda, cultivating a virtuous, wholesome behavior leads one straight to the goal of the holy life. Sad, sad, sad. That's why we practice Sila. Not to tell people, hey, I practice 8 precepts, 10 precepts, 227 precepts. Oop-de-doo. Who cares? How close has it gotten you to Nibbāna, to the goal of the holy life? These 5 precepts, you could attain Nibbāna, supreme, with just the 5 precepts. Because it's the training, because soon enough, those 5 precepts are going to take you to the Sila, where nothing will faze you. Nothing. And now I'll jump to the second sutta, the one right after that comes, sequentially. So from Anguttara Nikaya 10.2, this is the Cetanākaraṇī Sutta. I love the title because I translate it as not needing the intention. Not needing the intention. So let's dive right in. Again, this is from the Anguttara Nikaya, as I said. Bhikkhus, a virtuous person living with wholesome behavior, no longer needs to have the intention, may non-regret come to me. Remember, in the previous sutta, Lord Buddha is saying, because of practicing Sila, the person has now non-regret. Now here, as a follow-up or a footnote to that, Lord Buddha is saying, the person who lives like that no longer has to have the intention, may I not have any more regrets. May non-regret come to me. This, because it is only natural at this stage for non-regret to be experienced by a virtuous person living with wholesome behavior. It's just, the person is it. It's like an elephant that does not need to wear a name tag that says elephant, or wear an elephant suit to tell us, to convince us, hey, I'm an elephant. Wearing robes, whatever kind of robes, does not make you automatically a person who is practicing the holy life. Okay? There's no confusion. Lord Buddha is making it very clear here. But there is this supposition, there's this assumption that we have, that if the person is this way, this looks like this and has this, then it has to be, oh, is there non-regret in the heart? And that is not coming because of the person saying, asserting to themselves, yeah, may I have non-regret, may I have non-regret, may I have non-regret, may I have dispassion, may I have dispassion. It's stupid. You don't even need it. Because of the lifestyle that you already have, you are practicing virtue. It just comes. It's like starting a fire and saying, oh, there's a fire meanwhile, and you're saying, I wonder if there's going to be heat generated from this. I wonder if there's going to be light, luminosity coming out of this. Don't worry, you started a fire. It's a fire. It's going to have those things. Naturally, Lord Buddha is saying. That's where the title, not needing the intention. Intention here is the Cetana part. Someone who has non-regret no longer needs to have the intention. May delight come to me. This because it is only natural at this stage for the person with non-regret to experience delight. Now, why did I choose this sutta? One might ask. Because oftentimes we are so hard on ourselves, so tough on ourselves, from time to time, when the practice isn't going so well, perhaps, or you're not able to go deep in your practice, or you were able to drop into, as I was saying, samādhi one day, and the next day it's a fight. And then that old ways of thinking come in. Say, you're doing something wrong. You must be doing something wrong. That is where you need to practice discernment and say, okay, Lord Buddha gave me the formula, the quick formula. 1, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. 1 Sila, Samadhi 2, Panya 3. Am I keeping Sila? Yes? Okay, check that box. That's already enough for you to celebrate. Am I doing the proper technique? Am I applying sati properly? Am I forcing anything? No. Am I lax? Am I too loose? No, I'm not. I'm in the middle. Okay, that means I'm going to check the second box, which is samadhi. Already, because of those two boxes being checked, guess why? You're practicing discernment. You're not taking anything personally. And this is crucial. Because if you're doing the work, if you sowed the seeds, you've taken care of the land, the soil, and the rains are coming down, or you're watering the soil, don't worry. Any moment now, those tiny little budding plants are going to pop their heads out of the soil. You don't have to go poking around inside the soil to see if those seeds are germinating. Don't worry, Lord Buddha is saying. You don't have to make the intention. Just follow the path. Because if you're in it, you're going to be in it for the remainder of the journey. Someone who experiences delight no longer needs to have the intention. May joy come to me. So the previous to joy was delight, remember. So you're already experiencing delight. Don't worry, joy is coming next. Sit back, enjoy the ride with sati and sampajanya. This because it is only natural at this stage for the one experiencing delight to also have joy. Someone who is joyful no longer needs to have the intention, may my body become tranquil. This because it is only natural at this stage for the joyful person to experience tranquility throughout the body. The body must experience tranquility. And because of the body experiencing tranquility, the mind also experiences joy. Piti manasa kayang pasambati, Lord Buddha says. When there is joy in the mind, the body becomes tranquilized. It becomes soothingly calm. And because of the body becoming calmer, the mind becomes even joyful, more joyful. That's why it moves into bliss. So it's a lovely, lovely circle that feeds itself. But it is changing. And that's why soon enough it will unfold into the other ones that are coming up. Someone experiencing tranquility throughout the body no longer needs to have the intention, may I feel bliss. This because it is only natural at this stage for the person experiencing tranquility throughout the body to feel bliss. Somebody might come and say, do you need anything? You just, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. That's why many people don't understand it when someone is, or it might have happened to you personally, you're in meditation and you come out of meditation, or you're on retreat. Somebody might come and say, do you have this? Did you get this? Did you get a good, oh, did you get that response to that email? Say no. Did you have that? No, no. But you look so relaxed. You look so happy. Like, what happened? Are you taking anything? No, no, no. You're actually falling into the Dhamma. Dhamma, another word for Dhamma is true nature, the truth. Someone experiencing bliss no longer needs to have the intention, may I have samadhi. This because it is only natural at this stage for the person experiencing bliss to attain to samadhi. So get yourself out of the way, basically. That's what Lord Buddha is saying. So many times we place ourselves because of the expectations we have. So leave your expectations out. Just stay the elephant, being an elephant. You don't have to wear a name tag. You don't have to wear an elephant's hat, elephant's body, uniform, skin, hide. No, you're fine. Someone with samadhi no longer needs to have the intention, may I be able to see and understand how things really are. This because it is only natural at this stage for the person who attains samadhi to be able to see and understand how things really are. It's just natural, Lord was saying. That's why these two suttas go hand in hand. we need to understand as to what is this referring to, the sutta. Someone who is able to see and understand how things really are no longer needs to have the intention, may I become disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world. This is not, that's what I was saying earlier. You do not say these things to yourself as assertions, as positive thinking strategies or affirmations. No, none of those are necessary. These are the natural outcome. Otherwise, it would be similar to, well, it's a grotesque image. Imagine a tree, a pear tree or an apple tree, that you go to the store and you buy some apples and you get the crazy glue or some scotch tape and you come up and you tape those apples onto the tree branches and saying, aha, why though? The tree's fine. It's going to give you some apples soon enough. Relax. Why? Because you have sown the right seeds in the right soil, you've taken good care of it, and they've germinated, they've sprouted, they've become trees now. Don't worry, because the worrying, the regret, all those are different states of agitation. All of them are bad. They're counterproductive to the practice. This because it is only natural at this stage for the person to see, who sees and understands how things really are, to become disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world. And someone who becomes disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world no longer needs to have the intention, may I directly know liberation and experience it for myself. This because it is only natural at this stage for the person who becomes disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world to directly know liberation and experience it for oneself. You're not going to be able to, as the saying goes, there's in English there's a saying, the cat is out of the bag. The cat's out of the bag. You can't put the cat back into the bag. It's impossible. Sometimes I've seen footage of people putting a cat back into its cage. Let's say if they're going to carry a cage, take him to the vet. And the cat puts its arms, legs, and it's like the claws, and it's like, no, I'm not going back in. That could be an image to use here, because despite the ignorance that one still has at a stage, let's say, in the progress, in the training, every once in a while you might have that feeling that, I don't want to be so disenchanted from everything. At least, can I have this? Can I still have it? I like that. I like to watch, let's say, some sports, like just that, just that. Or just ice cream. I like to have my pizza. Can I just not lose that passion towards it? Nope. That's why I sometimes have told you, students, some of you at least, that when you want to pursue, when you want to be on this path, are you sure? Because sooner or later, you're going to pass that point of no return. Are you ready? It's not like you're losing something. Well, in a sense, as Bhante Nyananda says, you would be losing the ignorance that there is something. And you will also be losing the craving that there is not enough. And what a wonderful thing to lose. Without disenchantment, without dispassion, it is impossible to experience Nibbāna. Impossible. So anyone claiming to have experienced Nibbāna, check. Do your due diligence. Look at their behavior. Look at the cars they drive. Look at their watches, their bracelets, their golden rimmed glasses, the way they coif their hair, the gel they put, the clothing they wear, etc., etc. Is there disenchantment? Is there dispassion? Even if they're bhikkhus, by the way, minus the hair part. Therefore, bhikkhus, knowing release and experiencing it directly for oneself is the purpose and benefit of becoming disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world. Becoming disenchanted and dispassionate towards the world is the purpose and benefit of seeing and understanding how things really are. Seeing and understanding how things really are is the purpose and benefit of samādhi. So Lord Buddha is now, I love the way he's such a perfect teacher. He introduces it point by point, and then he does a summary from start to finish. You can call it the forward direction. And then he's now doing it in the opposite direction, right? Like patiloma, anuloma, of those, the way he does it constantly with the paticca-samuppada. He's doing it here, but in the context of the development of the practice. Seeing and understanding how things really are is the purpose and benefit of samādhi. Samādhi is the purpose and benefit of experiencing bliss. Bliss is the purpose and benefit of experiencing tranquility throughout the body. Experiencing tranquility throughout the body is the purpose and benefit of having joy. Joy is the purpose and benefit of experiencing delight. Experiencing delight is the purpose and benefit of having non-regret. And non-regret is the purpose and benefit of living a virtuous life with wholesome behavior. So you see, because as one stage of development is completed, it overflows into another, while one advances and moves from one stage to the next, until finally the person traverses from the near shore to the farthest shore. If this is not the treasure map to Nibbāna, I don't know what is. If this is not a step-by-step guide, I don't know what is. People complicate the teachings. It is not complicated. Following it, we make it complicated. Or not so complicated. It requires our discernment and understanding, and that's why it's important, like I was saying today in the meditation part, ease. We need to start with ease. Ease is another term for, I use it as a synonym for tranquility. Ease. If it's genuine ease, a sense of ease that you have with the mind, with your attitude, naturally tranquility will flow out of that. And this path always relies on that. That's why the 5 disciples initially were shocked, because they saw in Bodhisattva Siddhartha's face the wrinkles and the fighting, the little skin that he had on his bones that were sticking out. They could still feel his frustrations. And that was interpreted as, yes, he's practicing. Look at it, a guru. But then he's like, no, something's wrong. What is the payoff? More frustration, more pain. There's no tranquility. There's no ease. There's fighting and fighting and fighting. There's no Nibbāna out of fighting and fighting and fighting. And that's why they were like, when they saw him washing his body and coming out of the water, and he's like, whoa, his facial muscles are relaxed. It's tranquil. Oh, and that's not spirituality. That's why Lord Buddha taught the Noble Eightfold Path. That's why we have the Dhammacakkappavattana when he sees them again, because they were still stuck on that extreme. He could have taught them something else, but they needed that. The middle path, that teaching was to be given to them because they were stuck. They were leaning on something and translating that as the true path. That was complete ignorance. Anything, any of these extremes, leaning on to those is still keeping us in suffering. So I hope this sutta helps you to navigate this through this flood and cross over to the farthest shore, as Lord Buddha would say. So I'll stop here and see if there are any Questions, thoughts, comments? Okay, guess there aren't. See? All right, so let's transfer some. Akasatha Chabhumatha Devanagamahitika Punyantam Anumoditva Chirang Rakhantu Lokasatanam. Akasatha Chabhumatha Devanagamahitika Punyantam Anumoditva Chirang Rakhantu Lokasatanam. Akasatha Chabhumatha Devanagamahitika Punyantam Anumoditva Chirang Rakhantu Mumbaranti. So, may your practice continue progressing, and may the Dhamma continue flourishing in each of your lives, each of you. And may the blessings of the Triple Gem be with you all, protect you, and may you make the most of this life, in this body. Till we see each other next week. Sukhi Vot.